Good morning, Shellee.
Good morning.
How often do parents ask you, can you give my kid a scholarship?
Oh, well, when they find out what I do, probably that's the second thing that comes out of their mouth. So I would say frequently.
And yet, behind that question is much bigger story about identity, expectations, and what happens beyond the scholarship.
100%. And, a lot of families are just so overwhelmed, they don't even know where to start. They just know that they don't want to or can't pay full
Mhm.
price. And so they feel under the pressure of how are we going to navigate this? So it is a bit of a challenge that the parents just don't even know where to start.
Yeah, sounds fascinating. Can't wait to explore that. Let's dive in. The following is a conversation with Shellee Howard, the founder of College Ready. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Sid Bensala. Today, we explore how students, athletes, can prepare for success both in college and beyond the game through smart planning, strong coaching, and a long-term vision. To support our show, please check the episode description. Shellee, welcome to the show.
It is my pleasure to be here.
You've worked with thousands of families, and your message is clear. College isn't just about where you get in, it's about what you get out of it. Let's start from the beginning. How did helping your own kids evolve into building college ready?
Well, that's why College Ready actually was started. My
Hmm.
eighth grader, my son, when he was in eighth grade, he came home and he's like, Mom, I know exactly what I want to do and where I want to go to college. And I'm like, what? I changed my major 5 times and I definitely didn't do it the easiest way. Please share. And he so simply said, I'll never forget, he says, I want to go to one of those Ivy things
Hmm.
and I want to be a brain surgeon. And I'm like, wow, we don't have any doctors in our family. Where's this coming from? It's obviously not from me. And he says, Mom, I really want to help people. That's what I want to do. And so he was my reason because at that point, never planned on being a college strategist. So I did what every great parent does, and I took him to somebody I thought was going to help him.
Hmm.
And his high school counselor, no bash on counselors, they're amazing people. They just have a lot of students to deal with, said to him, why do you want to be a brain surgeon? They don't make money anymore. And I looked at my son, and my son looked at me, and we both looked at her, and we're like, well, I guess we're done here. And that's what led me to College Ready. So I went back to school and I got my master's degree. Then I became a certified independent college consultant. Then I started touring 25 colleges a semester. And
Hmm.
then I had a firstborn child who did exactly what I asked him to do. He applied to 12 schools, got into 11, 7 full ride offers, and ended up at Harvard pre med. So he was my why. And since then, I'm going into my 18th application season. That young man ended up rowing crew at Harvard. He ended up going to UC San Diego Medical School, and he's now chief resident at UCLA orthopedic surgery. So
Wow.
he pretty much kept his word. He did try brain surgery, but he just said it was just too painful to watch the patient suffer. So chose hip and knee is going to be his specialty.
Wow, what a story. You must be very proud.
I'm really proud of the choices that he makes.
Hmm.
But I have 4 kids. I'm proud of all of them.
Yeah.
And uniquely, right? They're great at what they do. But 2 of the 4 were scholar athletes, and so was I. And so I have a special place in my heart, and that's why I wanted to be on your show. I think so many times people don't realize when you're a scholar athlete, it's like applying to college twice.
Hmm.
You apply academically and then you
Right.
apply athletically.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here, and I have a huge heart to share on how we can help.
Yeah. Yeah. What gaps did you see in how schools or clubs were supporting students athletes?
So, our biggest difference in this generation compared to even 5 years ago, and especially 10 years ago, is everybody's forced into picking one sport really early. And it's really been hard on their bodies. You can see students whose bodies are breaking down much
Mhm.
quicker because we could play back in my day. I was a three-sport athlete and it was like cross training, right? Different muscles, different mechanics. And now they're so focused on you have to pick one sport, then you have to do club and high school in many cases. And so they're playing every single day for hours upon hours. So that's been the biggest difference I've seen is just these poor children as they're developing, their bodies are not handling it because there's no rest time. And then mentally, of course, mental is half the game of athletics. And they're just burnout and burdened by the time they hit their junior, senior year in high school.
I'm quite familiar and I'm used to, and even when I talk with the various guests, depend if they are coach or spiritual leaders, we always talk about coaching the whole athlete. And we focus on two segments, the mental and the physical aspects. But today, for the first time, we're gonna add a third aspect, which is financial. So how does it mean to coach the whole athlete?
So when you think about their future, this is probably the best way I can help parents think about this is what ultimately do you want for their future? Are you thinking they are gifted to the point that they are going to be an Olympian or they are going to be professional? Because statistically, it's very much set against them. I would
Mhm.
never tell that to a student and I would never discourage anybody. But we need, as adults, we need to get really clear what that is because that is a very different path than one that is supplemented by athletics and the financial piece. Many families spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on private coaches for their student athlete. And then they worry, how are we ever going to pay for college, hoping they get a scholarship for their athletics?
Mhm.
The chances of that happening, especially a full ride, is, I mean, we're talking maybe 2 or 3%. It goes up a bit if you are a money generating sport like basketball or football or, depending in Europe, it could be uh, football or soccer. So helping parents get clear. I know a family who has spent well into 100,000 on hockey coaching, hockey lessons, one of the most expensive sports out there. And the chances of their child going professional are so incredibly against them.
Mhm.
And yet they say that they can't go to college because they can't afford it. So it really comes to a mindset shift of what is the end game? If the end game is your child is truly gifted and when they're young, right? You don't have to wait till high school. There's some kids. I remember when I coached like 5 and 6-year-old soccer players, and I knew the ones that would just they had touch on the ball. It just they could shoot, they could dribble. It was amazing. It wasn't my kids, but it was amazing to watch those kind of kids. So that's what I want parents to really think about. Is it something that they want more than their child? Is it something they're doing because they think financially they have a better opportunity? What is the end game and how is that all going to play into the child's development?
Can you share an example without disclosing names, Shelley? A student whose life shifted through your process?
So the first one who comes to mind, there's been a lot. We
Hmm.
work with a lot of scholar athletes, but this it was a young lady. And she was really gifted in water polo. I mean, you just her stats, she was all league, all state, just such a gifted player. Love to watch her. And in our program, we were able to help her clarify what does she want as her end game? Did she want to just play in college? Did she want to play at a higher level? Because nobody had ever asked her, what is her why? Everybody just kind of
Interesting.
yeah, everybody just kind of, patted her on the back and gave her another trophy. And so she was kind of like a robot, if you will. She just trained and played and trained and played and didn't she missed out on high school, didn't have much of a social life. And so I remember when her family came to us and the parents were like, we just want an athletic scholarship. That was it. That's what they wanted. And of course, I honor that because I
Hmm.
do understand and that I appreciate. But with every student, I still like to know who are they, what matters to them, and why are they doing what they're doing. I have never told a student to stop, nor will I ever. That is something that is a personal decision for the student and the family. But I think that every child is best served if it comes from within. That's the mental game, right? If it's I want it versus my parents I want to please, you can dig way deeper mentally and it's yours and you own it. So this young lady, it was hers, it wasn't her parents. And
Hmm.
so it was super exciting. But what she was missing is what's after water polo and college. And we had to get some clarity around that because she wanted to play D1 water polo in college. And yet she wanted to pick pre med as her major. She had big dreams of becoming a doctor, pediatrician.
Hmm.
And she knew that at a D1 school, they may make her pick the major they want. And I told her ahead of time, I said, are you going to be okay with that? If they pick your teachers, if they pick your major, if they navigate what college looks like. And she said, absolutely. I just want to play. Like it was a her drive determination. I just want to play water polo. Shellee, can you get me there? So, long story short, this young lady played 4 years at UC Berkeley
Hmm.
and lived it, breathed it, didn't have much of a social life once again. And then in her junior year, she blew out her shoulder.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it's one bad injury.
Yeah.
And luckily, she was at a beautiful, great college. She was on her way, but now she was discouraged because she wasn't doing pre med. They had told her she needed to do economics.
Hmm.
And so she came back to me and she's like, I know we discussed this. I know this was something that you wanted me to have a plan for. I call it plan A, plan B, and plan C. We never want the injury, but it happened to both my own children. So I tell students we need to talk about so if and when that does, hopefully it's not bad enough to end your career, but if it is, are you still going to be happy with your adulthood? Because that's the one thing we don't ever want to have is the regrets.
Hmm.
She, thank goodness, was able to pivot and go into pharmaceutical sales and deal with doctors and hospitals and so on and so forth. So she still had her, connection to medicine and helping people get better, but it really wasn't the ultimate dream, but she has no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah. And Shelley, specifically on that, how do you keep the focus on a long-term growth instead of a short-term wins?
So helping the family, first helping the student, because if you ask, and parents, I encourage you, if you're listening, ask your child, who are they? Just so simple. And really just don't say another word, but just be quiet and let them struggle with it. I have very few students who can give me more than three things. So once we help them to figure out who they are and what matters to them, then we're able to open up their mind to longer term versus just instant gratification. This generation has all the social media, all the texting, all the computer at our fingertips. They want it now. They don't want to plan. They don't want to talk about, they don't want to wait. They
Yeah.
sure don't want to talk about a possible injury. But I approach it in such a way that it's like anything else in life. If we don't plan for it, it's going to derail us. If we have a plan A and a B and a C, it's just simply pivoting and going on to the next plan. And that takes away the stress and the overwhelm. And then that student doesn't feel so deflated because in life, that is just truly part of what we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Are families approaching sports like a financial investment?
I think partly yes, partly is they're living vicariously through their child. I would say 50%, maybe more, of families are pushing their child because they wish they had somebody who would have pushed them, is what
Hmm.
I often hear.
Hmm.
And they feel like they want to give their child every opportunity. So they feel like they're being a good parent by doing so. And then I would say the other 50% are I'm terrified because I can't afford college if my child doesn't go on an athletic scholarship. And I'm going to let them down if I don't make that happen for them. And so I hear very strongly on one side and strongly on the other. And the beautiful thing is if you blend the two, it's such an easier path than being all one way or the other.
Mm. You said earlier you gave an advice to the listeners, and hopefully many parents will listen to this episode. Your advice is talk to your little ones, see what they want really, the why and how. But quite often, parents they say we are here to guide, to support, which is true, and absolutely no issue with it. But in the same time, quite often I hear this, Shellee, where we need to push them because they cannot see the opportunities in the future. And I think there lies the problem. There is the issue, you know, supporting, helping, be there for them, no question mark whatsoever. But pushing without talking to your child or trying to figure out, is this what they want really? You know,
Mhm.
that's why I fully agree with you. Your advice is, I hope it will resonate with the listeners. Please talk to your kids. You know.
The other thing that I think will make your life easier, parents, if I can just I have 4 kids, and so I've
Mhm.
navigated this, is when it's theirs, when they own it, they don't forget their cleats at home. They don't
Mm.
forget their glove,
Yeah.
right? They have their bag packed waiting by the door in the car. You're not begging them to hurry, hurry. If you're dealing with all of that resistance, there's some reason why.
Yeah.
And so, as soon as you can help your child figure out this is their dream and they need to do what needs to be done for their dream, your job is just the taxi driver. It is so much easier.
Yeah, yeah. What's the advice, or how do you help parents shift the conversation from scholarship to something more sustainable?
So, helping the family have an open conversation about money is the biggest challenge that I believe my clients are faced with. Many of them do not want to share that they can or cannot write a check for college.
Mm.
And there's a big burden there. The second piece, to be quite honest, is these teenagers are financially not literate, that they don't understand how much $400,000 of debt is and how that will strap them to be able to buy their first home or their car, or they marry and now they're double debted. And so, but if we don't have this conversation, how will they be able to make a wise decision? So what we do in our program is we actually take their core values, their gifts, their talents, their advocacy, and then we can show them here are careers that suit you so well. Here is how much money they'll make, right? And this is where I know there's a big disconnect because students will be like, $20,000 a year. That's amazing. And I'm like, oh no.
Mm.
So there's this big disconnect about what life is going to look like outside of the parent's home. And so by not talking about it is setting them up for this huge disconnect on when they pick a career, they pick a major, they take a loan out for school. I believe that if we at whatever maturity level your child is, can talk about, do you know how much it would cost to buy our neighbor's home, to pay for the electricity, to put food in their fridge? And it may not be like your own financials, but just helping them think not as a burden, like we can't afford you or you're a burden to us, not like that, but in a way of excitement and joy. Like, if you want to live here, this is what you're going to need to do. And in order to do that, you're going to need a career that does this. And nobody's having those conversations, not at any high school I've ever heard of. Very few families have time to sit around the table anymore because they're running from sport to sport to sport. And so it's really important for families to take that pause on a vacation, on a flight, wherever that is, and just help them understand college is a privilege, and if done well, can set them up for alumni and job opportunities and wonderful, wonderful things. But if they do it wrong, it can absolutely set them up for disaster.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what my mission is to help families get out of that situation.
Yeah. Do you have this approach where talking with parents and their teenage student athletes, do you have this approach where you explain reward versus the risk?
So the first thing we do is we first assess the student and what are their gifts and their talents. Because if that's an unrealistic starting point,
Hmm.
then we have additional work we need to do in that area. I've had students come to me where their parents say, most amazing child I've ever, they're gifted, on and on and on, incredible athlete. I have a swimmer right now whose parents told me how amazing. And then when I talked to the student and I asked about the accolades, he wasn't even on varsity. And yet they're looking for a D1 school.
Hmm.
So first I have to really help families without discouraging them
Yeah.
to be realistic about what are that child's opportunities to play at the level that their expectations are set. And again, I'm not trying to tell anybody not to try harder or that this is not possible. But I also think that some people need to have a little reality check of what does it take. From there, we're able to then help the student get clarity about what does the future look like for them and the parent. So a lot of times I will talk to a family and I'll ask, what is most important, the academic fit, the social fit, or the financial fit? So let me break them down. So the academic fit is, do you want your student to be at a school where everybody else has a higher GPA and a higher test score? Do you want to put that pressure on them? Can they handle it? And if they want to go on to grad school, MBA, PhD, law school, they need to graduate at the top 5% of that class.
Hmm.
Can that student handle it? Again, it's really just an open conversation. Then you talk about the social fit. Think about the students you want your child to be around in 4 years where they're being molded socially the first time away from your home. Where does that happen? What kind of university is going to support that? That's the social fit. A lot of times we find our significant other, best friend, roommate. Will they find them there? I tell parents, go on a college campus, sit in the commons area where they eat, and look around and say, do you see your child fitting in here and being successful? When my son was at Harvard, he was a student. He rode on the crew, and the young athletes, he was a mentor, and they would come to him stressed out, freaked out, overwhelmed, not able to balance. And he was there as a mentor stating, what is it that you want? Right? When
Yeah,
you go
right.
to Harvard, you're competing against the best of the best of the best. And sometimes kids get in over their head. And, that's a reality. So we want students to talk about that and families to talk about that before they apply, right? So that's the academic fit. And then you get into the financial fit. are you going to let your child apply to a school that your family can't afford? What if they get in? Now, what are you going to tell them? I'm sorry, good job, but we can't afford it. So this is where it takes a conversation with a neutral party, because it doesn't matter to me where they go. It matters to me where they're successful, where they're going to thrive, where they're going to graduate without debt, and ultimately where they're going to have a career that they are set up for success. To me, that was my ultimate goal for all four of my children.
Yeah.
And if we look at it with that long-term mindset, it's a lot easier to simplify the process to get there.
4 weeks ago, President Trump signed an executive order to establish a clear national standard in the U.S. around name, image, and likeness in college sports. The order aims to stop the bidding war that have popped up in recent years that requires federal authorities to finally clarify are student athletes employee of their school or not, which is a big shift. And for families already navigating scholarship expectations and dreams, it's one more layer of complexity. Shellee, let's start here. What do these changes mean for families right now?
First, I would say don't get too caught up in it too quick. There's a lot of turmoil, if you want to call it that, going on. And things take time. And just because we want something doesn't mean we always get what we want. And so I tell families, plan for your child's success. And we don't know. I mean, a family who's listening, who has a 7th grader, right? They're going to have a longer runway. If you have a student right now who's a rising senior, yours is going to look very different. So for the sake of the podcast, I always tell families this: if you stay in your own lane and help your child be the very best they can be, it always works out. The more you start to listen to your best friend's cousin, sister's brother who has an opinion, that's when you're going to get in trouble. And it's same with politics.
Yeah.
Same with picking a school because you're worried your kids are going to party there. I'm telling you right now, you can find partying at every single university in the world, globally. You don't need to go looking for it. And yet you can find incredible opportunities for academia and for creative thinking. And so please, parents, this has been going on for ages, where you can get caught up in the drama of the competition. And if you just stay focused, stay in your own lane, supporting your child, guiding them and loving them, it will all work out. I don't know how the political fanfare is going to impact at what level, and it may be different at different places. In the US especially, our universities are pushing back hard. And we have to be thinking, when it's our turn to choose, that's when you have to be in the know. But until then, we don't know how it's all going to play out. The same thing happened during COVID when they went test optional and everybody lost their mind. And they're just freaking out like, this is changing the game. This is going to be awful, blah, on and on. And guess what? Most schools are test required again. Yeah. So we've come full circle. And if you would have got caught up in that drama, I told students from day one, take a test, be ready. You don't know when they flip the switch that we're going to require it again. And that's exactly what happened. Just keep doing your thing and being the very best version of you.
Yeah. I tried to dig and to make sense to that order that was signed recently. And correct me if I'm wrong, Shellee, that schools can pay athletes directly up to 20 million US a year, and I saw that figure and I said, wow. And I don't know, but this will create a kind of a tsunami within the parents. I mean, in terms of the planning and the investment that already they did, and they see this kind of opportunity. How do you shape a conversation around this recent news?
I think it goes back to everybody's going to parent the way they want to parent. And I've learned a long time ago, I can only give the advice, I can't make them follow it. And so it comes down to it's a parenting choice. Are you going to get caught up in that situation? And if you are, what are the consequences to your family, to your child? So it to me is like any other decision we make. If I sent my fourth child to Europe, and it's a very similar thing because her dad was like, absolutely, she's not going to Europe. Or what's wrong with our schools in the United
Mhm.
States? It's dangerous over there. And she can't live on her own. And you know what I'm saying? Like everybody comes with these crazy, some may be real, but over the top thinking. And his sure was, right? He was a protective father.
Mm.
And I first said, you know what? Let's do what's best for her. And that's what I want parents to be thinking through all of this. Not what the order says, not what the carrot is. Let's think what is really best for my child. And for our fourth, it was to go to an international school to study international business. That was the best thing for her. She matured beautifully. She got to tour the European areas. And so I make a kind of a horizontal to that because it really was a shift that my husband had to make.
Mhm.
It's a parental shift about, are you going to get caught up? It's the same thing if you watch the Hollywood movies about the families who push their child into the athletics too early and the burnout that happened. I mean, Hollywood has done a great job of showing the consequences of what could happen. And now, if we take it down to a collegiate level, I just think it's another level where parents are going to have to help their child navigate. And ultimately, parents deciding what do you want for your child?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
Because the
things
whole issue around the NIL, it's the parents or families believe that NIL will solve the college cost issue, you know. And your approach, if I understand you, it's to keep them grounded,
Yeah.
in terms of what they did so far, the goals they set for their kids, hopefully together with the kids, and what is possible and what is not possible, you know. And
Yeah.
we talked earlier about things can happen, injuries happen, rejection happen, you know. And what happens when the dream shifts? If you don't
Mhm.
have a plan B, plan C, then you're stuck.
Absolutely. And I often tell families, I play softball for the USA, and I remember coming to my dad and begging him to let me try out.
Hmm.
And he said, "No." He said, that there's no professional, you're not going to make a dime." He gave me a hard no. And I was like, "But this is what I want." And he's like, "I understand what you want at 17, 18, 19, 20. I understand. But I need to make sure you can take care of yourself as an adult. I don't want you to finish your career and then be like, I have nothing." And so he had to do the hard parenting thing. Now I still did play softball, let's get real. So I had some, but it was me convincing him
Yeah.
and us creating a plan. And that's what I'm hoping families can get really clear on, is having that plan and that conversation about what does that look like? What are the sacrifices I'm going to make? What are the benefits I'm going to get? And I mean, he was right. When my softball career ended, nobody signed me up for making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. It was just a handshake, good job, well done, and put the trophy on the wall and dust it every now and again.
Yeah.
So I come from a totally different perspective. And I think it's important for students to really have that long game connection.
Yeah. Why did you decide to launch University Ready and focus on global education?
Well, there was a lot of concern. There is a lot of concern in the US about financial, for sure. families who make too much but not enough, the middle class families who are struggling to figure out they can't afford in the US. And then there was also students who really don't particularly care for the traditional school here in the United States, and they wanted something new and different and exciting. And then the other thing is in Europe, you get to jump right into your major and
Yeah.
it's game on. And so a lot of students here are super frustrated having to take math, science, history all over again. So what I did is I had just like child number 1, child number 4 said, "I don't want to go to school here in the US." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what is the plan?" She goes, "I don't know. Will you help me?"
Yeah.
And there you go. That's how University Ready was launched because I now was seeing her concerns, her struggles, her frustrations, where my other 3 were fine to go with the US plan because that's what I knew. And after working with her, she got in and out of college with a dual US and European degree for 27,000 total,
Here we go.
international business,
Yeah.
and she got to live in Prague and she got to tour Europe. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do when I have a do-over.
And for the listeners, I must say Prague is one of the most beautiful city in Europe. It's a fantastic city. It's very safe. Here I'm not I'm not pushing Prague because I know the city very well. I go there practically twice a year, you know, and they have one of the top universities in the world.
Absolutely. And so she was my why. That's why.
Mm.
And since then, I have helped students all over the globe. Some want to come into the US, some want to go out of the US, some want to go to Canada. I mean, there's so much opportunity. And that's why University Ready was launched, just because these students deserve to know all of their opportunities versus just focusing on this is the only option for
Option,
you.
yeah, 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 yeah. Good. When we talk about equity and female athletes, what challenges still exist for female athletes in college admissions in the US?
Gosh, the spoken or the unspoken is the one I like to talk about. I'm actually mentoring 12 female athletes right now. We're doing an incredible. I've partnered with several other women athletes, and so I'm seeing them head on. And what I would say is mindset, but it's also for men as well. I don't think it's truly unique to women. I think we've overcome a lot of challenges, not all of them, but we've overcome a lot. I believe my daughter had many more opportunities than I did, and I believe her daughter will too. So I do see it as a positive. We're going in the right direction. I just think having to choose so early on your one sport that you're going to spend the rest of your life doing, I still think that's harder than female, male. I still think it comes down to starting a child super early and being focused on that one sport is just hard on the body. And that's where I'm seeing the challenge. Softball players, shoulders, you know, it, the pitchers, the catchers. I mean, the tennis players. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for women, and so I look at it as a positive. I think that some of the things they wish for, they got, and maybe now they wish they didn't ask for them. But but I do believe some schools are better at it than others.
Hmm.
It's just like some employers are better than others. So I don't want to say it's good or it's bad. I think that's too generic. I think that you can find good and you can also find bad.
Yeah, yeah. And one major topic that it's not only in the US, here in Europe, we have the same issue when it comes to equal pay in sports, where it's we are not there yet. Absolutely not. you know. I believe the U.S. Soccer national team, they are the first female team that managed to, and they had to fight, by the way. Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
it didn't come just like that. They had to fight with the federation in the U.S. to get equal pay like their counterpart male. But then when you look at other sports, we are miles
Mhm.
apart, and it is frustrating. And when you talk to young girls, when it comes to what kind of shift in how we can support girls in sports and academics, there is no silver bullet unless there is policies and regulations to make sure that because when you look at based on merit, they work maybe more than males, maybe. You know, I see different sportsmen here in Europe. They work very very hard. In most of the top sports, swimming, gymnastics, soccer, hockey, volleyball, you name it. But when it comes to equal pay, it's like something we don't want to talk about. It's kind of a taboo.
I think it's unfortunate. And I think more people are starting to talk about it. I believe that we're not close yet. And like my dad said very realistically when I was making the decision, you have to make choices in life. And, some people are driven by money. Some people don't care about money. Some women would do the sport if they didn't get paid a dime. Is that right? I don't believe so. But it can't be my belief. It needs to be the 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 different leagues, the different teams standing up. Like when you win a sport, you're in a position to be heard. And I think that using the right platforms, just like the US women's soccer team, I think that's the kind of thing where you're going to make the biggest impact. To just fight on paper, um, or on Twitter, it's not going to move the needle. It's going to be people who have just proven that they are worthy of the same pay. And that's what I love so much about that story. It's near and dear to my heart because I think that the way they finally were able to prove um and then make a statement, I think was genius. I
Yeah,
think if more and more teams did that, that would move the needle.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You've built a network of over 27,000 families. How did that grow into a movement?
So what ended up happening, everybody wanted to know, how did my son get into Harvard pre-med and then graduate without debt? And college ready was never supposed to be a career change. It really was. I loved inspiring students and their families to plan for their future. And so I was doing it as a side job to my full-time career. And then it became more families were asking, and I had to make a decision. Um, I love my last career, but I kept really being pulled in to, I can make way more impact here. I
Mhm.
can change lives. And as part of our program, our students do 200 service hours of uh, community service. And that was an element that I couldn't have impacted anywhere else. It is my belief that if every teenager served their community before they turned 18, that our world would be a much better place, more forgiving, more understanding. And so that was my mission, is to help teenagers figure out how not only can they help somebody else, but they learn about themselves while helping somebody else. And so it was a beautiful place for me. And that's how we've been able to expand. We now have a nonprofit organization called empowereducation.world, where we're educating 850 children in Uganda
Wow.
who had no school, no food, no place to go. And they walk 3 hours to this school and 3 hours home. And to me, it was all about impact. And that's why I do these podcasts. It's helping families know that I am here. I've been on Fox News. I've been an international speaker. And yet I meet families all the time and say, I didn't even know there was somebody who did your job. And I'm like, that is why I do what I do,
Yeah.
is because it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to put in the damage just for your child to be successful. A young man at my son's graduation who was sitting next to me says, dude, I didn't even know that kid was smart. He called me dude, which I thought was interesting. But the second part is my son was salutatorian, and yet nobody knew he was second best in his class. To me, that spoke so much into having the balance of the sport, of the happiness, of the academia, and living his future of what he wanted, not what I wanted.
Mhm.
And that's why College Ready was, started. And that's why our impact is still as strong as it was the day I started.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's next for College Ready? And how are you scaling impact without losing the personal touch?
Yeah. So I have a team of 11,
Mhm.
and every one of my team members has a specialty. I have an incredible team of essay professionals, essay brainstormers, essay proofers. They're amazing, but you wouldn't want me to do that, right? I hire to, just like in a sport, right? You don't hire all center forwards. You got to
Mhm.
have the wings, you got to have mid, you got to have back. And so that's how I hire my team. So we call it a village to support your village. And every one of my team members has been a parent first. That's mandatory. They have to have walked in your shoes, because that's how we keep it personal. That's how we help bridge that gap. We've walked in your shoes. And so what's next for us is really growing University Ready and continuing to stand strong with College Ready. So far, I've been to 98 countries personally. And this year alone, I've been to 7. And while I'm there, I'm touring universities, I'm talking to admissions, I'm listening to students, I'm meeting with students. And this is what's going to give us the competitive advantage to help students all over the world, because with Zoom, we're global, like it or not. There's no need to stay right in your back door. You can do anything you want.
You're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. Great. Now it's time for our lightning round.
I look forward to it.
Excellent. Early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Favorite breakfast to fuel a big day?
Eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, eggs and sourdough and avocado if you want me to get really deep into my breakfast, but that's pretty much it every day.
Yeah. Favorite way to unwind after a long day or a long week?
Long walk on a very long beach.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. If you could have a dinner with a historical figure, who would it be and why?
Oh, that one's tough. I have a lot.
Pick one.
Gosh, I would say Edison. I think
Uh-huh.
having to think outside the box, just be one of those thinkers, like people telling them, you can't do that, you can't do it, right? That's who I want to talk to. Somebody who really, really made impact.
I agree with you on that. Yeah. Yeah. What's a non-negotiable in your daily routine besides the breakfast?
Yeah, the breakfast. I have to be outside at some part of my day. I can get caught up on Zoom very easily, and I need fresh air. I am a scholar athlete by nature, and I just need to have that balance.
One thing you're still learning.
Oh, every day. Where I'm learning right now is all the AI platforms. I'm fascinated with all the AI platforms, and I need to know this because my teenagers are going to know this, right? All my students are trying to beat the system with AI, and I have to help them know we have AI checkers. So that's my big learning right now.
Hmm. Maybe off topic, do you see AI becoming more and more into coaching instead of physical coach?
I think someday, I think someday, um, affirmations, the mindset, I think AI can play a big piece in that. But I think that the connection between a coach and a player, I just don't see AI as
Mm.
being able to bridge that gap. I think creating plays, analyzing other team strategies, I think it's coming. But I really believe that the coach has a connection that no AI could create.
Shelly Howard, thank you so much for joining us today.
It has been my pleasure. And parents, the sooner you start planning, the easier your plan will be. So thank you.
Thank you. And I leave our listeners with a famous quote from a famous coach, the one and only Coach John Wooden. Success is a peace of mind which is a direct result of self satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best you are capable of becoming. We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.